Well, I would say this is the start of a counteroffensive in military terms, in ground terms. And the reason I say that, Colonel Mike and Dr. Mike, is what we've seen is two lawsuits put in by Sidney Powell in Georgia, 104 pages, and one and the other one in 75 pages in Michigan. The highlights of that are, number one, that in Georgia, Sidney has identified 96,000 absentee ballots that were not counted into the system. So 96,000 votes have got to come off the rolls. And she's working that out. In addition, she also found out that through the Kraken, and the Kraken is the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion, who works these kind of problems, that we have Chinese and Iranian involvement.
Wow.
Very startling. That's the first I've heard it in the counting process.
Gotcha.
More to follow on that, but that certainly puts in the executive order that President Trump put out in September of 2018 comes into effect. So that is very significant. It's the first I've heard of it that it's been written, and I'm now seeing it pop up in other areas. The other areas were in Pennsylvania, for instance, the state sent out 1.8 million mail-in ballots, and then they counted 2.5 million mail-in ballots. You figure, but I think somebody was printing mail-in ballots and that they're illegal. That's 700,000 ballots, gentlemen, that have got to be taken off. And that's clearly the difference, in my humble opinion, in these states. So this is what we're seeing. The other thing I saw came up was Wisconsin has identified 150,000 fraudulent votes, and they outline them by the numbers very accurately. So this is what is all developing. It's a ton of information coming in, much of it from crowdsourcing, from people like us, people that are studying these numbers. And the final thing I want to highlight before I want Colonel Mike in, or Dr. Mike in, is I saw a very, very important analysis of the data in real time. And when they stopped the voting in about 6 or 7 states, some number, around midnight or so, all of a sudden, around 3 or 4 numbers would come out. And it would be like, for instance, Virginia. Trump won Virginia. And now I think we're kind of surprised about it, particularly the way Fox rolled in 5 minutes after the polls closed, and Trump was way ahead. And until they stopped, then they threw in a slug of votes. But here's what happened. On that slug of votes they threw in Virginia, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Georgia, they used an algorithm. Now, how do I know they used an algorithm? Because the ratio of number of votes, so maybe 120,000, 138,000, like in Michigan, whatever it was the exact ratio in all the states, the same.
Wow, amazing.
And so right there is evidence, just looking at numbers, that an algorithm was put on it. It would be impossible to get that exact same number in 4 or 5 states around the same time.
So, General, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The way you're talking today on Thanksgiving Day, this is just a tip that we're learning about.
Precisely, Colonel Mike. And that's why I think we should say, and I'm certainly going to say it, with this data that's coming in, Biden ought to concede right now, and just concede. Now, he probably won't. But what we're talking about, because it was so massive and because so many people involved, you can't hide this. Time is not our friend. But this is treason. This is treason. We are looking at treason on a massive scale. And the people that were nominated by Biden to be Secretary of State and those other functions that they nominated, UN ambassador, et cetera, were all probably involved. They were all involved in the Russian hoax. We know that. And now involved with this. So the connectivity, and here's where I'm going to see, where is John Durham's report? What has John Durham done? Or is John Durham part of the deep state?